followed a woman into an elevator. As soon as they entered, he began harassing her, but she immediately pushed him away. When the elevator doors opened, she walked out confidently. Suddenly, the elevator malfunctioned. No matter how many buttons he pressed, it wouldn't budge. He heard strange noises coming from outside and started banging on the elevator walls for help, but no one responded. Desperately, he began trying to pry open the doors with all his strength. He managed to force the inner doors apart, then started working on the outer doors. He could only create a small gap because the safety lock was engaged. The man shouted loudly into the hallway, but the offices outside were as silent as a graveyard with no response. He tried to squeeze through the gap, but his large frame wouldn't fit. If the elevator were to drop at that moment, his head would be severed. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was his wife, saying someone was banging forcefully on their front door. Since he was trapped and couldn't get home, he instructed her to lock all doors and windows, call the police, and hide. He then called his friend, asking him to check on his wife. 4 hours later, a crowd of people began running frantically outside the elevator. A woman suddenly collapsed to the ground. It was the same woman from earlier that morning. She desperately reached toward him, begging to get into the elevator as something seemed to be dragging her away. Their hands gripped tightly, but ultimately, some force pulled her away. The man was completely bewildered. Breathing heavily with nervousness, he gathered his courage to see what was happening outside. As he slowly approached the elevator doors, 2 grotesque zombies appeared, snarling and having completely lost their minds. They frantically tried to squeeze into the elevator, but the opening was too small for them to enter. A noise from behind distracted them, drawing them away. The man was utterly confused about what was happening. His phone rang again. It was his friend, who reported that the streets had descended into chaos. Something major had happened, and the streets were now blocked off. His friend still didn't understand what was going on. Suddenly, the elevator intercom activated. It was the building's maintenance staff. He urgently called for help, but after just a few words, another horrifying scream came through. Little did he know that what would happen next would be even more terrifying.